All right, let's look at using type in After Effects. If you've used Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, you'll find that it's type is handled very similarly in After Effects. It's almost the same in both programs or in all Adobe programs, with a few exceptions. So I'm in After Effects. Let's make a new composition. So composition, new comp, and let's make it NTSC D1 square pixel. Let's do widescreen. I think that the aspect ratio on that is a little bit nicer, a little not so square looking. So NTSC D1 widescreen square pixel. Okay. And let's make it, I guess the default is 30 seconds. I'm not sure. Let's make it 05. So it's 5 seconds long. Okay. You don't need to do anything too long here. And okay. And let's start out just making a piece of text. There's two ways to make type. And also this applies for Illustrator and Photoshop. It's the same in all programs. Point type or paragraph type, okay? Point type you create by just clicking once on the screen and it makes text, okay? Paragraph type is made specifically for making blocks of body copy that you can justify, and it's handled a little bit differently. You create that by drawing a box on the screen with the type tool. Okay, we're never really going to use paragraph type in here. It's not used that I don't feel it's really that useful in After Effects, at least for the things I do with it. So we'll just work with point type. Okay, so again, if I was to do this with the type tool, that's body copy. Okay, but if I just click, all right, that's point type, or sometimes called display type. All right. Let's make 3 lines of text so we can look at all the qualities of type. Okay, this is type, some more, whatever. It doesn't matter what it says as long as it's about 3 lines, and then just hit your selection tool so you're not making type anymore. Now, once you put a piece of, yours is probably flush left like that, and probably a different font and a different size, etc. We can fix all these things. I'm not sure if you're seeing the same palettes I am, but to make it all the same, let's just go to Window, Workspace, and Text. And that way we see, yeah, it's, I don't know if it's any better than what we had, but we see the character palette right here. This is the character palette. This is the paragraph palette. Okay, again, those are in Illustrator and Photoshop. And here's our effects and presets area, which we can scroll up like that if we need to. We'll use that a little bit also. All right, so looking at the character palette first, I'm just going to go through, reading method top to bottom and look at all these parameters here. So first off, we have our fonts, all right? And the fonts are not indigenous to After Effects. They're just the fonts that are loaded on your computer. So whatever fonts you have available in PowerPoint or Word or whatever, they're also going to be in After Effects. Okay, maybe I'll just do Arial bold or something like that, just some plain type. Now, if your text looks kind of pixely here, mine looked sort of pixely. I reduced my screen resolution was very high, so the box here was kind of small. I have a high resolution monitor that I'm working on right now. So the box here was kind of small if it was at 100%, okay? So right down at the bottom of your display area, there's different things down here. I've mostly been ignoring this area, but you can zoom in and out. You can just do fit, so it fits to the available area, right? Like that. Or you can do fit up to 100%, meaning it won't get any bigger than 100%. And 200% or whatever, okay? Just gonna leave it on fit. But if the type looks pixely, it's probably because you're looking at it at more than 100%, which could happen. Also right here is, we're looking at it in full resolution, but we can look at it in half resolution, okay? Meaning not less, it's just showing it to you more pixely. There it is as quarter, and you can clearly see that. This is just, this is kind of like zooming in and out over here, right? But this is showing a different resolution. If you're doing something really complicated and your computer's bogging down because of the display, you can just lower this. Probably won't have to in this class. All right. The other stuff down here mostly applies to when we get into 3D things. Anyway, so we have our fonts up in the top here, and we can change the color of our text. Okay, in theory. Have to have the type selected, the type layer selected, okay? Because like I was clicking around and that wasn't the last thing I clicked on. So anyway, type color, font, and the first thing here is type size, okay? So this is a thing that's different from other Adobe programs. Normally this thing where you can click right on the blue number there, or whatever color it is in yours, and drag right or left to change the size. That's only After Effects, I think, that has that particular functionality. But you can always click in there and type in, you know, whatever number you want, or you can go to the pull down, and here's a number of presets that are available. So that's all just changing type size. Now here's a weird thing, okay? If I drag on the bounding box corner, I'm in the regular move tool, right? If I drag on the bounding box corner, okay, it does the type, but like not constrained. So I have to hold down Shift to constrain it, right? That's like in Illustrator. But watch the type size in the character palette. Okay, see, it didn't change, all right? So when you scale the type manually like this, it doesn't change it in the character palette. I don't know why. That's not consistent with any other Adobe program. I find that super annoying. It should be when you scale it here, it also scales there, okay? So maybe it won't matter, but if you were doing some kind of video where you had like a lot of separate pieces of type and you wanted them all to be to a consistent size, it could make it kind of crazy. You might want to just only scale the type using this in the character palette, and that kind of simplifies things to some degree. All right, moving on, the next thing is leading. Okay, so leading is the vertical spacing between lines of type from baseline to baseline. All right, and it's set to auto at the moment, which usually is a slightly larger size than the type size. So this would be 62 probably on 65 or something like that. But I can change it. If I make it 30, it's super tight. If I make it 100, it's big, okay, and I can go back to auto. All right, so that's vertical spacing between lines of type. Now you'll notice one interesting thing here is there's no little keyframe stopwatches here. So usually practically anything in After Effects is animatable, but we don't have that here. There's other ways we can animate type though. The next thing here is kerning. So kerning means generally refers to tightening up the space between two individual characters. And it's usually just used if somebody has a very prominent piece of type, like in a logo or a title to an article or something, and they want to really massage it so it looks just so. And you'll notice it's grayed out. That's because I need to go to the character palette and, the type tool, and click in a particular space. And now I can say, you know, minus 100 to tighten that up, or whatever. I'm just going to put it back to 0. That's not something I think we really need to use in this class, but it is it's more commonly used kerning in maybe an Illustrator or page layout programs or something like that. Probably not in After Effects, though you might. Oh, that brings up one good point. When you're in the type tool, all right, did you notice I just went in and I clicked in there and edited on it, all right? If you watch, I'm in the type tool, and if I move my cursor around that here, see how it's like a text insertion point with a box around it? That means if I click in that location, it's going to make a new piece of type. See how that appeared in my layers area there? I'm going to Control Z that. But if I click right if I move my cursor over the type, the little dotted line goes away. That means I'm editing the type. Okay, you just need to make a distinction between those two. Moving on, the next one is tracking, which is horizontal spacing between characters and words. All right, and if I turn it up, it does this. Okay. Okay, all things to change the look of type. Down below here is vertical and horizontal scaling of type. So if you wanted to stretch the type here, okay. Generally speaking, you want to not do that. I mean, maybe there's some reasons too, but usually if you're trying to do good typography, distorted type like this is, anybody with any kind of design eye is going to kind of like see that as ugly. Because and what you want to do is, if you want tall type, you want to find a font that's designed to be tall, because typefaces are actually things that they don't just like exist. They weren't formed in the Big Bang or anything. They were designed by particular people to look a particular way, and when you stretch it, like that, you throw all the design qualities of the font out of whack, and it usually if you're trying to make a trashy garage look or something like that, maybe it's cool, but usually don't stretch the type. Okay. To me, it just looks like a crime was committed. All right, moving on down here, baseline shift. Okay. It looks like it just, when I do it with the whole piece of type, it looks like just the type is moving up, but it's actually moving the characters above the baseline. And it's more like, if I just selected one piece of text, okay, it's used more in that. If you just want to move part of it higher than the other letters for whatever reason, okay. And then this last thing is Sume. It's kind of new, and or in After Effects anyway. I don't really use it, but it increases the spacing or decreases the spacing, okay, around individual characters. And word space. Okay, so I don't really, it's somewhat different from tracking. I use tracking. I don't ever use this, but somebody does, so I don't know. And anyway, there's a few other things down here, like exponents, superscripts, subscripts, to force fake italic. Again, that's the thing that you don't want to do. That's crappy design. If it just tips the typeface, but it's not the designed italic font. So again, if I wanted Arial italic, I would just go look here. Here's bold italic. That's a real one, okay? Not fake italicized. Anyway, so that's the character palette. All right, now to do good typography, that's all you really need to know. I mean, I'm going to show you some ways to animate type and some tricks and stuff like that, but making text look good in a video is really just about the size of the type used, the fonts, the relationship and colors and positioning and balance, etc. is really where good typography lives. In my basic computer graphics class, if you have or will take that, we go over typography in much greater detail. Here, we're kind of just, we're going to use it as needed, sort of. Anyway, here's paragraph down here. Flush left should be your default. Here's centered and flush right, okay? I'll leave it on flush left at the moment. You'll notice these four are justify. Okay, justify means to force the type out to the margins, and it's the only difference between these four is how the last line in a paragraph is treated. Flush left, centered flush right. Normally you want flush left for the last line of a paragraph, justified paragraph, but they're not available. And this is another thing that's inconsistent between After Effects and other programs. They're not available because we're not using paragraph type. We're using point type. Okay. in Illustrator and Photoshop, you can justify whatever kind of type it is. So I don't know. This is some slight differences here. Let's see. So that's the basics of working with type. Let's try taking type on a path. We can draw a curvy path and put type on it. Okay, so I'm just going to delete this. Whoa. Sorry, I have Word open to keep me on track here, and I actually just deleted a line in Word. Let's see, where am I? All right, I'll do that, and I'm just going to delete this. All right, so let's just type something. So I get the type tool, and I'm just going to put in type on a path, and then hit the selection tool. And make it like medium size, like this, not too big, not too small. Okay. And flush left should be fine for this. I'm just going to put it there. Now let's get the pen tool. All right. The pen tool is our Bezier tool, and we're going to look at it in greater detail later on. I'm just trying to get a line drawn at the moment. So let's just start up here, kind of like that, and click once. All right. And then go down to the bottom and click and drag horizontally. Okay. So it pulls out this pair of tangents, and then go up here and just click. All right. So, and then I'm just going to hit the selection tool, so I'm not drawing with that anymore. So we made a piece, we made a line, right? Now, the way these lines are handled is a little confusing at first. If there's no layer selected, right, it makes a shape on a new layer, okay? If a layer is selected, like ours is now, it becomes a mask for that layer, okay? Now, we didn't close the mask, so it's not obscuring or hiding anything. It's just an open line. So we can use it for type on a path. So if I go down to my layers area and hit the little arrow to open this up, okay, you'll see text, right? And now there's masks. That's usually you just see text and transform here, but now we see masks because they drew a mask on that layer. But if I open up text and path options, okay, and path is, I must have not had it fully selected. It is on the layer. Path options, path. Hang on a second. Okay, sorry, I had to pause the recording there for a minute because next to path, there should be an option to choose this particular mask to put the type on. But in our last session, I turned off this little button in the middle here, right? Which I never did before. I usually keep that on, but I was just kind of demonstrating what these buttons do down here. And it closed this thing next to path, which I never noticed before, so that was something new to me. Anyway, change path to mask one, and now the type is on a path, right? And we can animate this, so let's do that. Let's see, so like there's some different things we can play with here that you can mess with if you're interested in, but just looking at the basics. So first margin, if I adjust that, okay, it's like the beginning of the type, right? So we can animate its position. So let's drag that thing to the left until the type goes all the way off the screen, okay? And we're at home, right? So I'm going to just animate that quality. So turn on keyframing, go to the, let's see, maybe the middle somewhere, and turn this forward. So like when you make a line, if the line ends, it just continues in a straight line off the end of your curve. All right, let's end it right there. Okay, so kind of in the middle of our animation. So that's cool. All right, this is the thing we're going to hand in. So we'll build a few things on here. All right, so we have our type on a path. All right, let's look at text animators. All right, which lets you animate the qualities that are in the character palette, more or less. You can, let's make a new piece of type before I go on. So get your type tool, make sure it's got the box around it. So we're going to make a new piece of text, right? And just let's type, I don't know, animation or something like that. Just typing one word. And let's see what that guy's here. So I'm going to position it kind of like that. Maybe this will all form a thing at the end, a graphic. All right, so I have this word animation. Now, of course, you can animate type, right? If I go to transform, I see my TRAPS, just like normal, right? But we're going to look at these other things called text animators. These are a little bit complicated, but we'll do a few examples, and I think you'll start to understand it. So animate, it's if you open up your type layer, right? Here's my animation. I opened it up, and next to the word text, you see animate, okay? And let's start animating position. Okay, so go to position, right? And all this junk opens up, right? And you should see, though, there's the main thing is this animator one, range selector, and position, and it's got an X and a Y. Okay, so let's drag, so X is left and right, and Y is up and down, right? So let's drag the Y number, okay, to the left until it moves all the way off the screen like that. Okay. So if you scrub your current time indicator, nothing happens. What's actually happening is we change the parameter, and then there's these range selectors, which are kind of like brackets on either side of the type, and you animate their position. So the type is either included inside of the range selectors, and thus the change you made applies, or when they fall outside of it, the change goes away. All right, so just to look at this, if I open up range selector 1, okay, and I animate this, the start is at 0 and the end is at 100, so it should be, right? That's the finished position. But if I change the start along like this, see how, if you watch, there's on the screen, there's a line that moves to the right, okay, because I'm moving the start range selector to the end position. All right, or if I take the end and move it to the start, it does the same thing in reverse. All right, so let's animate the start position. So make sure you're at home, okay? Start keyframing. Step 1, turn on keyframing. Step 2, go to another point in time. I mean, go to when this thing appears down here, some in the middle somewhere, and turn start up to 100%. Okay, so there's that. So let's add some other parameters. Okay, let's see here. Let's do, so there's, I can close this thing up, I think. So there's add, all right? And if I add a new property, it'll use the same range selector, but just add some other value to it. So let's use scale, okay? And let's scale the type up to like 300%, say. If I type when you're in scale, the X and Y are locked together. So if I just put 300 for one of them, the other one should change also. 300, 300. Okay, so now you'll see when it's outside when it's inside the range selector, sorry, which is also off the screen, it's at 300% and it scales down like that. And let's add one more property here. How about opacity? And just turn the opacity down to 0. Okay. So it's big and transparent and coming into position. Okay, so there's quite a variety of properties here. Let's do one more just for fun. You can, and we'll render this thing out and hand it in, just as an example of working with type. Character offset is kind of weird. If I do a character offset of 5, it like in the alphabet, it counts backwards 5 positions and cycles through them as it comes down. Okay, so watch. If I make it 5, and as it comes down, see it's changing letters. Sort of cool. Anyway, there's a lot of things to play with in there. And also, if you wanted to have something that used a different range selector, okay, normally what I do is I just go back to animate again and pick some other property, and it'll give you a whole other set with a new range selector. You can also down and add here, choose a new range selector there also, but I never do it that way. Anyway, so I'm going to show you a little bit more stuff, but let's render this thing out, and this is what we'll hand it in. You know, the usual composition, add to Adobe Media Encoder Q, etc. Okay, and post that into the form, the appropriate form for this week. All right. Okay, one more thing I will show you here. Let's get rid of this stuff and make a new piece of type. This is a bunch of just kind of fun presets that are in After Effects. Let's see. So I'm going to make a new piece of type. Okay. Make it a little bit bigger. And maybe I'll make it centered. I'm not sure if that matters. All right. So we have a piece of type. Let's look at these presets. Now, you may have to do this to see it, the effects and presets palette. If you can't find it, you know, all the palettes are window. There's effects and presets, okay? And if I make sure you have your type selected, okay? The type layer selected like this, not highlight type, okay? I don't mean, when I say selected, I don't mean like that. I just mean like this, okay? And if you go to effects and presets, this palette is kind of closed down at the moment, and go to the little palette menu, you'll see browse presets. All right, this is going to open Adobe Bridge. If when you it's possible you haven't installed that yet, so it might inspire an install, or cause an install from Adobe or whatever. But kind of I think it sort of depends on when you downloaded After Effects, what options you chose. All right. But hopefully it's there. This is just kind of like a bonus thing I'm showing you. It's not critical. So if you have some problem with it, don't worry about it. But it's a fun thing, a fun tool to have. So it opens Adobe Bridge in a particular configuration, and you should see, hopefully you're looking at something like this, and you should see a folder for text, okay? And these are all these presets. It's basically the text animators that we were just looking at. In very complex configurations to do cool stuff that you don't have to figure out because somebody already did it. Let's try animate in, okay? And if I just click on one, see, it gives me, you should see over here a preview. It might be on the Publish tab, but just make sure you're seeing preview, and it should show you what it's going to look like, okay? Not sure what that one's doing, but so this one looks super complicated. I'm going to try that. So just double clicking on it, and it should close Bridge, but it didn't. So I'll just close Bridge. And here I'm in After Effects, and it did that crazy thing to my type. Okay. And if you are curious how they did it, you can open these up, and should be found under text. Yeah, here's this whatever the spiral is, fade in, etc. Or if you wanted to see a different one, you could just Control Z, right, till it goes away, and then back to browse presets, text. And I'm just looking at animate in, but you can look at any one of these. These are all folders full of presets that refer to text. Animate in is just the type comes onto the screen while it does it. I'll try this one here. Okay. All you gotta do is double click right on here. And you can see After Effects started blinking at the bottom, which means something happened there. If I go back to it, right, and I just hit spacebar to play. Oh, pretty cool. All right. And I can go down here and you can see that there's an animator 1 that's been applied to it. And some complicated stuff that I probably wouldn't have figured out. And effects are applied to it also. All right, so I think that's enough type for the moment, but in the next class, we'll try actually applying the type to a creative project. See you guys soon.